Hello, my friends. Welcome to a new week, our second week of Lent. On Monday, this is your Pastor Yeti. So I hope all is okay with you there, outside, wherever you live. I wonder. So may this Lenten journey give you new perspective in your life as we walk our journey to Easter. Mark 5, the verses 1 to 20. So they came over the sea to the land of Gerasenes. When they got out of the boat, they were suddenly confronted by a man with an unclean spirit. He was emerging from a graveyard, which was where he lived. Nobody had been able to tie him up, not even with a chain. He had often been bound with shackles and chains, but he used to tear up the chains and snap the shackles. No one had the strength to tame him. On and on, night and day, he used to shout out in the graveyard and on the hillside, and slash himself with stones. When he saw Jesus a long way away, he ran and threw himself down in front of him. "Why, you and me, Jesus?" he shouted at the top of his voice. "Why you and me, Son of the High God? By God, stop torturing me." This last because Jesus was saying to him, "Unclean spirit, come out of him." "What's your name?" Jesus asked him. "Legion," he replied. "That's my name. There's a lot of us." And he implored Jesus not to send them out of the country. It so happened that right there, near the hillside, was a visible herd of pigs. They were grazing. "Send us to the pigs," begged the spirits, "so that we can enter them." So Jesus gave them permission. The unclean spirits came out and went into the pigs. The herd rushed down the steep slope into the sea, about 2,000 of them, and were drowned. The herdsmen fled. They told it in the town. They told it in the countryside, and people came to see what had happened. They came to Jesus, and there they saw the man who had been demon-possessed, who had that legion, seated, clothed, and stone-cold sober. They were afraid. The people who had seen it all told them what had happened to the man and to the pigs, and they began to beg Jesus to leave their district. Jesus was getting back into the boat. When the man asked if he could go with him, Jesus wouldn't let him. "Go back home," he said. "Go to your people and tell them what the Lord has done for you. Tell them how he had pity on you." He went off and began to announce in the 10 towns what Jesus had done for him, and everyone was astonished. The Gospels are not written to be a compendium of useful moral teaching and behavior, to be offered to a world that simply needs good advice and good example. They are written to describe a one-off unique moment in the history of the world. They make the sense they do only on the assumption that the world as a whole, and human beings in particular, and some human beings especially, are in an almighty mess and need a drastic rescue operation. They tell the story of how that dramatic and dangerous rescue operation was carried out. In particular, they demanded to be read at several different levels. Whether or not, as some people think, Mark was written for the young church in Rome, everyone in the first century Mediterranean world would know what a legion was. It was the basic unit of the Roman army, and each legion compressed between 5,000 and 6,000 men. They were Roman outposts across the Middle East, with the nearest legion itself based just to the north of Palestine in Syria. Legion meant Roman power. And Roman power meant a smoldering resentment on the part of local people who resented being ruled by foreigners, resented and sometimes dangerously resided, paying the tax to them, and resided above all the insults to their national way of life because their own leaders, including the chief priests, colluded with this pagan power. Legion meant all of that and more. With resentment there can come obsession. Suppose a Roman soldier had with casual brutality killed your best friend. Suppose a legionary had raped your daughter. You would go home that night foaming, furious but helpless. You would get up in the morning with this word hammering away in your head. Legion, legion, legion. And with obsession there can come possession. Oh, I'm not pretending we can understand how that works. There is nothing logical or easily analyzed about destructive evil. It wouldn't be so dangerous if we could understand it. But I know that in this way and in many others, ordinary people can, as it were, be taken over by strange forces. Sometimes they speak in their own voice, sometimes though another voice, or several other voices seem to be coming out of them, and the destruction nature of these possessions can often be seen in self-destructive behavior. People who have worked in this area I haven't done so very much, but I know and trust some who have will recognize all this as depressingly familiar. The story then seems to operate on at least 3 levels. First, that is the striking story of a very sick man being wonderfully healed and restored by Jesus. That, as always, is moving and powerful. But second, underneath that, there is a shadow of a story that a great many first-century Jews long to tell. The story of the Romans with their legions, their garrisons, their sneering officials, their tax collectors, and all their no-good works being driven out of the country, out of the region, preferable down the hill into the Mediterranean Sea, and never to return. Third, linked to that, there is something going on here about Jesus. Jesus' work on the edge of the Holy Land, the region he went into, that of the Gerasenes, is on the east side of the Sea of Galilee, disputed territory then as now. And there was a herd of pigs, as there certainly wouldn't have been if the inhabitants had been living as good law-abiding Jews, who of course didn't eat pork. There is an implicit challenge here. The story is an acted parable not only of cleansing a land of pagan pollution in the form of the Romans and their legions, but also perhaps of cleansing the land from the internal pollution of those who were sitting light to the ancestral codes. Though this then stands in some tension with Mark 7, as we shall see. Underneath it all is the larger picture, that of God who never abandons anyone, no matter how far gone. They seem to be of a Jesus who is acting with authority over all the forces that rear their ugly heads in his world of the spiritual power that can transform the sadness and most frightening of human considerations. Consider what it was like for the man's family, knowing the behavior described in verse 4, and then being confronted with their brother, their son, perhaps their husband, their father, coming home cured. This, Mark is saying, is what it's like when God takes care and takes the charge and he's acting. It will be a bumping ride because the terrain is so uneven, but the kingdom is on the way. Grant us, good Lord, to reach out for your help, no matter how appalling things may seem. Give us your healing and hope at every level of our hearts. Amen. A strong story today, but as we move day by day closer to Easter, it's good that we have to remind ourselves that as we move forward, not always the paths are cleared. There can be obstacles. There can be danger. So we need to be watchful. May God keep you on your journey. This is your Pastor Yari. Have a good day. Bye-bye.